All right, this is Spencer Alfredson and DJ, and this is my peer review.
Or were you supposed to do that?
I don't know, but I did.
Okay.
All right, so German opera and Richard Wagner. A little bit about Richard Wagner. His dates are 1813 to 1883. He had an extreme influence on the course of Western music, and especially German and Western opera, and a lot of composers took after him. Most of his known works are operas, including The Flying Dutchman, Tannhauser, Lohengrin, Tristan and Isolde, Parsifal, and The Ring Cycle. He argued that opera should not just be entertainment, but be dramatic, and that definitely shows throughout the operas that he wrote. A little bit more about Wagner. His compositions are notable for their complex textures, rich harmonies, and the use of leitmotifs, which we will get to in the listening. He built his own opera house, specifically to perform his operas and to do what he needed to do with his sets and stuff.
Is it like a miniature one, or is it like a
It's a fat one.
Oh.
I'll put a picture up of it. And they're actually performing Tannhauser soon. So they still do operas.
Like it's still up?
It's still up, yeah. They did some renovations on it in 2012 to fix it up a little bit. But it practically looks the exact same as it did. And they still do operas there. Still relevant. He was a very outspoken person about everything. And so his opinions were very known to people, and he made a lot of enemies because of that. And because of that, he was almost arrested for playing a small role in what's called the May Uprising. At this time, Germany was trying to unite all of Germany, and they were trying to make a constitution and everything, and he was like, and was part of a rebellion, so there was a warrant for his arrest, and he fled to Switzerland. German romantic opera, we kind of talked about this on Wednesday with von Weber. There's an increased role of the orchestra in the opera, and they
You're talking about like more intricate parts or what? Or like...
Yeah, the specific parts of the orchestra are more complex, and the orchestra tells the story along with the actors instead of just the actors telling the story. So like if you would just hear the music, you'd be like, okay, this is something bad happening, more so than earlier operas like Mozart.
Do you have like a instrumentation type of thing that like do you know about? Because I think you can put that in. Okay.
I could.
I mean, if you could look it up,
I will.
that'd be neat. Maybe make a little seating chart thing.
Mm-hmm.
That'd be dope.
Well, I'm not sure if the orchestra was bigger. It may very well have been, but
It may have been the same.
It may have been the same, but the music was much more rich.
Okay.
And especially with the use of leitmotifs, you would sometimes the orchestra would play the theme for the Valkyrie, and you wouldn't even see it, but you were like, "Oh, I know that theme. I know that's the Valkyrie," and then the Valkyrie would come on stage or something. So things like that. Yeah.
It's like the thing we watched today.
Yeah, a little bit. Like you had your spoken dialogue for the devil. It'd be like that, but the orchestra had that.
Mm-hmm.
This style of opera was pioneered by Weber with Der Freischütz, which we watched earlier. And it reached the peak with Wagner, and The Ring is one of the most notable that used this style prolifically. We'll be looking at Tristan and Isolde. It was composed in 1857 through 1859, and it premiered in 1865. The basic synopsis is kind of interesting. So, basically, Tristan murdered Isolde's previous fiance, but she doesn't know, and then she is being taken to marry Tristan's uncle, who is the king of Cornwall, So they're on a ship, and then she finds out that it was him, and then she was going to kill him. So she made her handmaid make a potion of death, and that they were going to take so that she could be free of the struggles of it. And then her handmaid made a love potion instead. And so they took it, they fell madly in love, and then Tristan's uncle, who was the king, got really mad, and so one of his knights fought Tristan, and then Tristan was mortally wounded, and then he died, and then Isolde died from grief. So, classic tragedy. The scene we'll be looking at specifically is the conclusion of Act 1. This is the scene where they drink the potion of death, which is actually the love potion. Yeah, so let's see what happens. And then I'll show it.
Okay.
Do you want to see some of it?
I'll watch a little bit, yeah. I mean, you can show me afterwards. 'Cause
Yeah,
it'll
okay.
play for the time. You might want to stop it, like, around 5 minutes, because after that, like, mine took forever.
Yeah, I have
Because mine was, like, 8. I was like, ooh.
I have a lot of stuff, so okay. The prelude of this opens with the Tristan chord, which we'll dive in a little bit deeper after we listen to it. But the opening of this opera really created some public lashback because there was nothing that was theoretically correct. So he used the chords and the dissonance and everything to twist the tonic, so nothing resolves ever throughout this whole opera.
So is this almost atonal? Is it?
It's not atonal. It's completely tonal.
Okay.
It just doesn't resolve.
It just messes with
And
me. Okay.
he uses a lot of seventh chords in the opening, and it just twists what you think is tonic, and then you think it's gonna resolve, but then it doesn't.
It's like,
And it's really trippy.
yeah.
And I have a video explaining exactly what's going on that I'll show, and it does it does a really good job of explaining what's going on. Yeah, there's no real resolution until the very end of the opera. So you have this sense of tension and longing throughout the whole opera, which is something that Wagner is trying to convey through this story. As I said, public reaction to this was extremely negative because it was not typical of German heroic opera at the time. Clara Schumann wrote that it was the most repugnant thing that she had ever seen in all of her life. It's a little harsh.
That is a little harsh.
But as a fine wine, people grew to like it as time went on. So here's the Tristan chord.
Is it the first chord?
It's the first chord, so it's right here, and then it kind of does this, and then it does the same thing, and this theme is repeated throughout the whole opera. So there you have that instance of the leitmotif going on. And then I'll show the video. Wagner is known for the chord because he used it in a way that was never used before. He used it to twist the harmony and to make tension and longing. Beethoven used it. Chopin wrote it. So it wasn't a new chord. He just used it.
Just used it in a new way.
He just used it in a different way that no one had ever seen before. Something important about Wagner is Gesamtkunstwerk. That is not correct.
Work of art.
It translates roughly to a total work of art. Wagner believed that opera should not just be acting and music and drama, but it should encompass every aspect of art, including dance, architecture, painting, drawing, etc. Which is why his operas have such extravagant sets. And he was really picky about everything. He personally was. He basically took over all of the operas. He wouldn't let very many other people do anything with it. So he would conduct it. He would choreograph it. He would do almost everything that had to do with it. One of the first instances of him using this total work of art is in The Flying Dutchman, where the orchestra has a much more dramatic dramatic role, and you can really hear it because it sounds almost like an orchestral piece, which is extremely different from the opera that we're used to at this time. And then it kind of peaks in his Ring cycle. Finally, Wagner's influence. He was fundamental in popularizing this German heroic opera. He coined the term leitmotifs, which they're still used today in movie scores. You have themes for everything. So he's responsible for coining that term. He was also a key in setting the standard for romantic music of nature and self-expression, and you can hear his musical influence on later composers like Holst and Rachmaninoff and Tchaikovsky. So.
There she is.